I'm going to start this video where we kind of left off with the data. I have shown you, it has to load here for a second, hold on. Once it's ready, I can show you, if you recall, I have some graphs from when I showed you. They're about to load. I'll make sure that I get rid of them, because I kind of want to just start over and make sure what we have is very clear. So I'm looking at printer paper, frog length, frog width, line paper, frog length, line paper, frog width. I want to make sure that we keep all of these data organized in the proper fashion. So you see that I'm copying the length with printer paper length, and now I will see the graph. This is the graph that I want to move over into my laboratory notebook. So I'll copy it, make sure that I copy it with the spreadsheet data. And then this, I already have labeled printer paper on my notebook so that I know which specific graph I'm seeing right here. And I'll have to make it a little bit smaller so that it fits, but you can see that I have here printer paper and I have a graph. Try to make this a little bit bigger so you can see it. There you go. Now I want to keep my graphs organized properly so that you're able to see exactly what the conclusions we can draw from these data would be. So I have my length for the printer paper. Now I'm going to go with width for the printer paper. Now if you remember, this was one where we saw a result that might have been somewhat suggestive of what our hypothesis was. So I'll make this into a chart. Thankfully, Google Sheets will automatically make this into a scatter plot, which is the best way of representing the data that you see here. So I'll copy this just as I did before, and then I'll go to paste it. And again, I want in this case, since I have the heading printer paper, I want to keep these together. I'll just make this a little bit smaller and then transfer it over. And there we go. Now I want to go to the next page in order to put my lined paper, because I want to make sure that the graph, I want to make this look good. I want to make it look nice. So now I go to my graph. This says results continued, and then I would put lined paper so that we can keep track of which kind of paper each graph would show. I'll get rid of these because I'm not exactly remembering what those charts were. So I have line paper, frog length. I make a graph of it. Now this is stuff that we already did, but it shouldn't be too much of a challenge. There we go. So now we copy this, and I'll paste this where it needs to go. All right, that looks about right. That gives me enough space below in order to put my last chart of lined paper. We're looking at frog width again. Okay. And I will move this over to my notebook. There we go. They should all fit. Hopefully they do. And now I have to make some conclusions about this. I have to think about what exactly am I trying to say here. If I look, I see that there were a lot of short hops at different lengths. There was a lot of inconsistency. Long hops at smaller lengths. Here's the only time where I see width. I see the longest hops in the middle. And then with the length, again, it's awfully scattered. So I would put this, I would have to write this. What we do first is we make what's called a discussion. So I'll make a text box, and I'll go to the discussion here, which I'll say, well, hold on, let me write this down. I do want to make sure that this is in a way, written in a way that it's not, I mean, the one problem with writing on a digital slide is that it's hard to get the font lined up properly. But if I have this written, so what could I say here? I could say the hypothesis for our experiment was not confirmed, because remember we said medium-sized frogs would be better creased and would be able to balance air resistance with the mass. So it was not confirmed in most cases. The hypothesis for our experiment was not confirmed in most cases. With the printer paper, we can see that the length, I mean, one of the longest was with a long frog. So with the printer paper, some of the, see if I can change the font here. I want to make sure that my lines, my words fit on the lines nicely. So with the printer paper, some of the longer frogs and some of the shorter frogs had the longest leaps. I think we could say that. With the printer paper, some of the longer frogs, some of the shorter frogs had the longest leaps. And with the line paper, we can see the information on the left. It appears that the longer the frog, or the shorter frogs actually, the shorter frogs leaped the farthest. It leaped farther than the longer frogs there. I think 16 font is good for typing things in. So when we measure width, it does appear that let's see, we'll give ourselves a little more room. It does appear that the frogs of medium width did have the longest jumps with printer paper. Yeah, because it was only the printer paper we saw that. Although this was not the case with the line paper. I think that's at least a start. The discussion is where you kind of explain the results. You discuss. That's what a discussion is. You present your results. You talk about your results. That's not what you do in the results. You don't talk about the results in the results. You talk about the results in the discussion. So for this reason, we do not have the results or the data to confirm this hypothesis. And then we would have a conclusion. The conclusion is a nice, short, succinct statement about whether our hypothesis was confirmed or falsified. So medium, well, we could say the size of a frog, the size of an origami frog, does not appear to have any correlation. We'll talk about correlation a little bit. Any correlation to the distance that a frog might jump. And so it appears that our hypothesis is falsified. All right, now with that, I actually think we actually need to say a little bit more in our discussion now that I'm thinking, because we weren't entirely considering all factors in the discussion, which you should do in the discussion. So one factor we did not consider is the consistency of the force that the frog is given, the force that is given for the frog, for each hop. So everyone was doing this individually. So we could say, like, students each performed this task individually. So we and it is doubtful that they all made their frogs jump in the same way. Careful attention. So how would we improve that? So really, everyone was pushing on their frogs with different amount of force, I'm sure. So careful attention to this part of the procedure where we measure the actual force of the frog's jump. Careful attention to this part of the procedure should be repeated in the future. In future experiments, we'll say. Now you can see my discussion ran a little long, even if I make my text box a little bigger. So the conclusion, I want to make this look neat, presentable. So I'm going to put my conclusion on the next page. I'll get a text box open here. And make sure that I have the right room. Let me get this adjusted properly. There we go. And just make this, I think it was 16. I'm not sure what. Okay, I'll just put a 16 in here. 16 fonts seem to be more or less the right size. Let me just check the font. It's Arial, and this is also Arial. So yeah, that's pretty good. That's how your lab notebook should look in order to get the proper grade. Now you do not have to copy my writing word for word. Please do not. But that's basically how you would write an entry into a lab notebook. Thank you.